Winning in today's market takes the right moves. Welcome to Elevate Your Business from Elevate Coaching at Guild Mortgage. In this episode, we learn how high standards lead to better results and why systems matter more than smarts. Let's get into it.
Most loan officers are not stuck because of the market. They're stuck because of their standards. Top producers aren't smarter. They don't have better leads. They operate at a higher standard every day. So today's conversation, we have got Beth Imhoff. She is from Southwest Oregon. She's a President's Club winner. We just got back from Mexico. Congratulations, Beth.
Thank you.
She is working on building a team right now, and she's doing it with structure and consistency. So welcome. I want to ask you, so give us a snapshot of, where's your business today, your production, time in the industry, and what are you building?
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. So I've been in the business about 11, 12 years. I had an interesting way I got in. That was like as a first-time home buyer, didn't know anything about mortgage, had a totally different career, and went to a big bank, and it was a disaster. I mean, it was just what you imagine, like a comedy of errors. And so that is what inspired me to get into the business, and I've loved it ever since. My team last year did about 38 million. We're on track to do better this year. God willing, it should be like 51 million if we're on track for that. My goal is 55 million. So always wanting to do more than what we're on pace for. But yeah, I'm excited to share what I know.
So you've talked to me about, top producers aren't smarter, right? They just have different standards. So what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it kind of the realization for me when I was coming up, I was a processor for a couple months, I was a loan officer assistant, and then it just once I started my own team and went out on my own, I was still kind of intimidated and imposter syndrome. I think we all have it to some degree. But I did just realize none of these people are that much smarter than anyone else. There's probably a couple exceptions out there, but your average top producing loan officer, I would say, is very disciplined, very diligent, organized, which is probably a pain point for a lot of us. But it's just, again, it's the systems, it's the repetition, it's the first I do this, then I do these three things with no exceptions, and it just rinse and repeat, right?
Kind of like a boring business, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
100%. Yeah.
Where do you think most loan officers, lower that, lower their standard?
Oh, goodness. Probably in the day to day, and it is we all have tough days. We all have those days when a couple $1 million can just evaporate from your pipeline, whether you're getting shopped or bad inspections or a combination. And so maybe the temptation is hey, I'm going to sleep in tomorrow. I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to take the whole day off, right? And yes, this is a business where in theory we can do that. Should we do that? Not all the time is the answer, right? TLC is important, taking care of yourself is important, but I think so is getting back on the horse and staying in your routines.
I think when you talk about that, I think about when people say, well, I got into this business for flexibility, right? And as I'm coaching people, asking them the question, so what's your start time and when's your finish time? And it seems to be all over the board, right? And it's even just that consistency, right, of when you begin your day and when you finish your day, right? Let alone what goes on in between.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually a big fan of if, a lot of people know I get up and I do Pilates, and I kind of intentionally pick a studio. I have a whole gym at my house. I don't use it. I pick a studio where if I don't show up for the 5:45 class, I get charged an insane amount of money. It's $20 or $30 or something. It's stupid. And so it's I'm not going to let that happen, right? And so it starts there, and then my day is off to a good start. I'm at the office by 8:30, 9, just depending on what I have to do at home before I, get going. But it's that consistency and starting that, win the morning, right?
I love that about just even having accountability at the gym if you don't show up.
Mm-hmm. Big time. And I have a buddy that I go with, so I don't want to let her down. It's you don't want to lose 20, $25 and let your friend down, right? That we specifically made a plan to go together.
You talked about also starting out a little timid, when you got into the business. What changed? Where did that, you went from timid to not?
Yeah, good question. It just with a lot of changes in the industry, right? Like obviously 21, everyone was cruising. And then I started to see, some peers that I'd held in really high esteem. And, obviously they're still great people, but like, y- you know, the habits got a little soft. And so the numbers fell off. And of course they did, because that's what happened to the industry. But it just showed me like we're all human. Those people are human. They're not superhuman. They're no better or worse than any of the rest of us. And it's just, I think the way that you can overcome that is those habits and running your team that same way. Like back, there was a time when like I like to do pipeline 3 times a week. There were times in like 2024 that I probably didn't need to pipeline 3 times a week, but I still kept it consistent because for me, I was like on my team, I'm like, this is what we do, right? We connect, we check in with each other. Even if we only have a couple loans we're talking about, it's that touch point. And like, it's not always going to be like this, right? Like, I want them to know I'm taking the actions that I need to make you busier, to, keep your jobs, right? That's important too, is thinking about, if I take the day off from prospecting or I, mess around, like it's not just my income, it's other people that depend on us to bring those loans in. And that's really important to me.
Right. And probably, you're not as timid when you start gaining confidence, right? So what were you doing? What were some of the things you were doing to help your confidence? Like if someone was out there today, newer in the business, or if they've had a little bit of a setback, because even I've seen that with loan officers. When they have setbacks, they start losing their confidence. So what do you do when that happens?
Yeah, great question. I think it's just getting back to like, staying on those basics. And it could even be something as simple as like, these are my 10 favorite past clients. And why don't I call the people who like me and I like the people? And I'm just going to call them and say, hey, checking in, seeing how you're doing. Nothing related to mortgage whatsoever, just on a human level. And so that'll be something I'll do. I have a couple agent referral partners that are like that. Certainly colleagues, my peers. I definitely have a couple lucky people that get to answer the phone when I'm having a tough day and just vent and then get over it and get back on the horse.
Get back on the horse. Yeah, I like
Mm,
that. So call people that you know
yep.
what I mean? And start feeling better. And
Yeah.
then we got to call the people we don't know, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's important. You can't just be calling the same people over and over. But for that confidence boost,
So let's go through your systems because this is where this is what changes and this is what makes a top producer. I've always said that the top 20% have systems in place and they're working those systems and they're doing it consistently.
I'm naturally a very organized person. I like don't feel right if things aren't organized. And so that probably is a challenge for a lot of loan officers because that may not come naturally to people. Um, but my day always starts the night before. I set 10-minute alarms prior to all my calls. So like if I have a 1:30 and a 2 o'clock, it's like I'm gonna have a 10-minute warning prior, and then I snooze it, and it'll snooze for 9 minutes, and so then I can't even get like lost in a task, and then I forget that I had to call this borrower at 2 o'clock. Um, and then I kind of know what I'm walking into, right? Like, do I have a day where I can work on a couple little marketing projects, or do I have like chock a block full, meetings, meetings, meetings? Um, and then really just trying to stick to those time blocks. That's always been a challenge for me, but I now have someone on my team where it's her job is to keep me accountable. And so that means she will print a list for the database and it's like, you must turn this list into me before you leave the office today. I mean, it is that basic. And I do it, and it's just checking in with past clients and it's not a practice I've been in really well. It's like it's a miracle I've gotten as much past client business as I have up to this point because I haven't done that. And so it's just seeing, hey, sorry I've been out of touch, just checking on you. Always here if you need anything. Drop the calendar link and that's it.
So you talk about time blocks. What are other things that you're time blocking every single week? So it sounds like you're time blocking past clients. What else are you time blocking?
Yeah, so past clients, I'm time blocking Tuesday updates. Obviously, we know that's very important. The kind of the old core formula, I've adapted it for my own business. TBD Thursdays, we do that. Fridays, referral partners. That's a big focus I'm working on this year is reaching out to more financial planners and, just kind of like related services. That's something I've been missing and not paying as much attention to. Um, and just, staying on top of stuff. The tasking in Salesforce is huge for my team where it's like, don't ever let yourself, oh, we sent a worksheet for this property. Well, then I'm never going to let myself not follow back up, right? You send a worksheet, you set a task for tomorrow, follow up. Did they like the numbers? Did they have any questions? Did they write an offer? Should I call the listing agent? All that.
What about you were talking about your letter of the week
hmm
and your post-call process. Talk to us about what that is.
Yeah. So that is basically, some people might be familiar with it, but essentially if you start January 1st with your A last names, the second week of the year, you go to B last names and so on and so forth. If you do that faithfully, you'll hit everybody twice a year because it's, 52 weeks, 26 letters. And again, I started that this year. I've tried to start it many times and I get to like the fourth week of the year and it all goes out the window. But this year we're on a roll. I'm not going to stop. I have a commitment to my team that that's what I'm going to do. And again, that goes back to like, it's not just my livelihood. It is other people now. When you have a team, you think about your ops, you think about your closers, you think about your marketing people, you think about all these other people that, it's easy for us to not make the calls, but what does that mean for other people?
Describe what is your letter of the week? What are you saying in that letter?
Yeah, and it's not reaching out to everybody. It's kind of just cherry picking, right? Reaching out to the people who make you feel good that, you really enjoy working with. And just updating little things like we know our database is the best. I'm the one who probably heard through the grapevine, oh, these people got divorced. Oh, we need to update this mailing address. Oh, I saw on social that they had a baby, so why don't we send them a little baby onesie as a, nice little something or buy something off the registry. So it's just a grab bag based on what I know is going on in their lives. And it's really kind of cool because I'm starting to, as I'm doing this faithfully, I am getting leads back to realtors have worked with them before, people who need to right size or upsize or what have you. I'm getting leads over to new realtors, like, if, hey, they worked with an agent and a lot of agents have retired, and so if they don't explicitly have someone that was taking over their business, then I can, in theory, I can hand it out to who I think is the best match. And that's really cool. And just checking in general, it feels good just to say from a human connection, how are you? How's life? I'm always here if you need anything, but it doesn't need to be about mortgage.
So you also have like 5 steps after you make a call. What are those 5 steps?
Yes, absolutely. So I joke like I'm an old lady. I take paper notes. I have my trusty notebook that's always with me. And it's just kind of like that pre-approval form call, what do we think our credit score is? What's our comfort on payment? What's our comfort on down? What are some hot button issues that may come up? And then I take a picture of it, email it to my team. It gets logged in Salesforce. So all that's super important to me. And then again, inviting them to the borrower portal. Obviously, I'll take an app by phone or in person if that's what the client wants. But I've done that once in 3 years. I mean, I really am not having people ask me to do that. And so I'm kind of sending that link out and depending on them to fill it in. And then the tasking in Salesforce, setting that task. If I haven't seen their app by this time tomorrow, I'm going to just check in and see how it's going. Checking in with the referral partner. I always say, oh, let so-and-so know that we chatted and, let them know that you're excited. I'm excited to work with you, just kind of having them reinforce that. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say, I talked to Susie today. We had a great chat. She says she'll work on the app and it'll be done by tomorrow. And then putting them on outreach too. I've started to use outreach pretty faithfully, and that has been huge for staying in touch with people.
If someone out there hasn't heard of outreach, what is outreach?
Yes. So it's, it is a paid service. I find it well worth the money. It is, sending emails on a sequence. You can customize everything, but like the pre-approval follow-up sequence, you would not believe the open rates that these emails get. And they're like, it's a subject line or it's an email that I would never think to write. I would write it and say, oh, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound, it sounds a little off. People open them. 9 times out of 10, and they'll say, "Oh, yes, I do need help. I saw this house that I liked." And it'll be, I mean, I'm ashamed to say, someone that I kind of forgot about, I mean, that does happen. And so they'll just pop back in and it keeps them on a sequence for, however long that sequence runs. And then at the end of it, it says, "Hey, you better put them on another sequence," right? Is there a longer term lead follow up? Is there a still shopping or whatever they're doing?
So this is great in theory, and we all want to do this. And when I talk to loan officers, I think the follow up is the hardest thing to be consistent about. What happens when this breaks down? If your system breaks down, what is the consequence?
I don't know how I could live without my systems, and that's why I love being here, is because it's part of my everyday life. But when that does happen to me, that's when things get missed. And I start to not feel as confident, right? If it's, again, like we were in Cabo last week for President's Club, and I did a good job keeping up on everything, but it's like you still do have that feeling when you come back of like, okay, I got to spend a couple hours making sure that, I have a great team. Everything was fine. Nothing was missed. But it's like at the same time, you just got to wrap your head around that and make sure. Um, because to me, that is when you forget the lead or you forget to get back to the agent or things like that. Um, and it's, loans are tough. I mean, no matter how great you are, things do come up. And so it's that much more important to me to be like 10 out of 10 on the front end, because if and when things do come up that are funky, it's like we need to have earned that trust and earned that, that rave review so they can stick with us through any weird things that come up.
Why do you think loan officers resist? Because what you're talking about is structure, right? You've got a structure and a system, and you're working with your team to do it consistently. And you're building a team, so you're recruiting loan officers. Like, why do you think they resist that structure?
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe it's because the temptation is to look at it like it's a flexible job. It's sales. You can come and go as you please. No one's making you punch a clock. All of that's true, but input equals output, right? More or less. And so if we're not treating it like this is my life's work, this is my full-time occupation, it probably does show up in the production. And again, like running a team, I want to lead by example, right? I want to show my team this is not something where it's like, you know, the loan officer gets to take 4-hour lunches and be on the golf course all day. I mean, those things can be important for relationship building, don't get me wrong. But, I need them to see me more often than not leading by example, being organized, committing to that. Everything I do is I want to make their lives easier. And then in turn, they make my life easier.
When you were processing, did you see some lack of structure with some loan officers?
Yes. Yes, I did. Yeah. So that could, that's a great way to start. And as an LOA too, it taught me, okay, when I run a team, I'm going to take this little, I'm going to cherry pick this system. I'm going to leave all this. The things that frustrated me when I was more on the ops side for sure, are things that I still run my business differently this day.
So I'm going to have to ask you, what was the number one thing that frustrated you when you were a processor?
It was the lack of systems and lack of organization, and kind of treating the business like a hobby, right? I can't say it any other way. It's like we are here to, we do an amazing thing for people, and shouldn't we hold ourselves to the standard of that? If you think about these decisions that our clients entrust to us, like rise to the occasion.
I'm sure you're not alone. I'm sure there's other processors out there that feel the same. So this is super important. So you've been in Elevate Coaching. What has coaching unlocked for you?
Yeah, it's been huge. And that again, like talk about the confidence booster and it's, I think it's as much what you get from your coach as much as what you get from your cohort, right? And so just building those relationships. And then, every semester I've been in coaching, those are people that I could call when I'm having a bad day or, kind of be real with, because I've heard them do the same thing on a call. Right. And these are people who some of them are producing way more than I am. And you might look at them from a distance and be like, oh, that guy's got it all figured out. And then you hear in coaching some of the struggles that they've had. And it's like, oh, we're all the same, right? We're all just people. We have our ups, we have our downs, but it just kind of shows you like how do they get there? What's the secret sauce? And it's really cool that we can, kind of be vulnerable together and get through it and share ideas and tips and tricks.
So what are you working on right now in coaching in your business? What do you want to work on?
Yeah, so right now, financial planners are a big focus for me. It's my husband is a financial planner, and I've never focused on this, which is like so silly. I'm like, what am I doing? I kind of speak their language. So that's a big focus for me. And so building out with an outreach sequence and, all of these steps and kind of getting back to that old school, like circle of cash flow idea. If you, remember that, I think it's been around for a million years, but it's like reaching out to those top 40 or 50 clients. Hey, do you have a financial planner that you love? If so, would you mind introducing us? And you just kind of take it from there. And that's worked really well. So I'm kind of excited to lean into that a little bit more. Honestly, it's a lot of my clients do need financial planners. So right now it's like I probably am looking more for people to refer out to them and find the right fit. But inevitably, I'm sure it'll come back at some point, to being a good source of referral partners.
When you are talking to financial planners, and especially like you have the advantage, your husband's a financial planner, like what are the things that loan officers should be thinking about when they want to partner with a financial planner?
Yeah, good question. And we were just talking about this on a coaching call is like maybe a lot of loan officers are intimidated by financial planners and they shouldn't be, right? Again, they're just people. They're no smarter than we are. Um, maybe in the finer points, but like they're smart in their little niche. They are not smart in mortgage, generally speaking. This is what I know from behind the scenes is like a lot of them, they have the general contours, they have the general outlines, but they are not in it day to day like we are. And so you would be surprised if you really get into this, some of the notions that they have about loans that we can or cannot do. And then start to talk to them about here's a solution for, you know, um, high net worth, no income, right? We have a solution for that. We have our flex loan, we have credit lines, we have bridge loans, all these different things that can help them. Ultimately, they'll probably want to keep assets in the market, all these different ideas, and they just, their minds are kind of blown when you start to get into it.
I think a lot of people they focus on real estate agents, which obviously is a great base for your business, but there's so many other business partners that we can come together and collaborate with. And I really think the future is about getting to the consumer first. So there's so many opportunities again through your database and all the things that you're doing. I love what you said. Like, I actually need more financial planners because I have a lot of clients that need a financial
Yeah,
planner.
100%. I have a lot of people, my database is in a spot where it's a lot of move up buyers. And so then it's like, talking about a bridge loan or, how do we finance private school? And it's like, I can give my 2 cents on some those things. But outside of the mortgage space, that's when I'm like, we got to phone a friend, right? Like, do we have a CPA? Do we have a CFP? Who are the other professionals that we should tap to give you holistic advice? So.
And the other thing you were talking about earlier to me, you were talking about how you're trying to build a team. So talk to us about that. What are you trying to build on your team?
That's another thing, like, that was a little bit of a leap of faith where I did not feel ready to add another teammate. I have an awesome, awesome, awesome LOA who we've been together for a couple years, and, like, it's like a yin yang, she's amazing at getting loan summaries out the door. She's an amazing structure brain. There's so many things that she does that can free me up to be having meetings on the phone, kind of making it rain, hopefully. And I was, like, really nervous to bring somebody else on, but then, the opportunity came up where, somebody I knew said, "Hey, I wanna jump into lending. Do you have a spot?" And I was like, "Oh my god, my production's not where I want it to be or need it to be," but it was a little bit of a leap of faith, and it's working out beautifully. So, I think that's another message for people is sometimes it does take the leap of faith. If you find the right I'm really about fit. Like, I'm never gonna be the person that posts on Indeed, to find like, I would much rather see it, see the dynamics of the different personalities and then train up from there.
Right. Make sure they're a cultural fit.
Yes, 100%.
So what is your goal this year for your production? You want to get to
I wanna be doing 55 million this year.
55 million.
Mhm.
And you've got 2 people on your team?
Yep, yep.
Perfect. So if someone is out there listening to you, we talked a little bit about, the difference between having a flexible schedule, right? And actually treating this like a job, creating systems in your business, being consistent around it makes a dramatic change in what you do in your business. Let's say someone's out there and they're kind of like fighting fires every day. They're not systematic. What is their first step? What would you tell them? What do they need to do?
Oh gosh, good question. I would say like having a template, like sitting down and being like, okay, from the beginning to the end, what is the life cycle of a lead, of a loan? Obviously, Guild has a lot of great tools for this. So it doesn't have to be Guild specific, but like on my team, I get a lead, I get a phone number and a name, and then what? And just sitting down and writing that down and really being faithful towards that. Um, Again, I'm a very organized person by nature, so it might not be as easy for some people, but like one example I have is I do a new contract call and I do a pre-closing call. And those are my two touch points. And it's like my team knows it is the same template every time. It gets scheduled the same way. As soon as I get a contract, I'm chasing the borrower down. I'm probably texting them and saying, like, I'd like to talk to you today. Let me know a few windows of time. And then I slot it in through Calendly because we have a rule set up where any Calendly goes to my team. So then it's like, okay, my team knows I'm talking to the contract we got today at 6:30 p.m. So they know our file needs to be set up by that time. So I'm going over locking. I'm going over anything that's happened to me in a transaction that's been a problem gets added to that template is the simplest way to say it. And it's just a big long list of like, and I tell the client, I make a joke of it. I'm like, your head might explode by the end of this. It is tedious, but I promise you it's all stuff that matters, right? Like prevents me, knock on wood, from having people going on vacation that I didn't know about, or, oh, I didn't know that Afterpay or Klarna are the same as a credit inquiry. I didn't know. I had no idea. I have a list that I'm going through with them. And I do make a joke of it. I say, we're going to cover any problem that could come up. I'm going to go over in this call and you ask me your questions. And then I have some things for you. And then I take notes and send it to the team so they know that like, here's all the things that are on my brain.
Well, I want to thank you, Beth, for being on our podcast. I mean, here's the thing. We don't need a better market. We don't need more leads, right? The gap of where you are today and the gap of where you want to be is really upping your standards, right? And you need to raise it and we need to protect it. But it all comes down, as you spoke about today, Beth, it's about being systematic, so being consistent. And she said a lot today about detail. And I completely understand for all the salespeople out there, Paula, Coach P, struggles with detail and has had to work on that a lot, but it does solve a lot of problems, right?
Yeah.
To get into those systems. So
yeah, it'll help you sleep better at night. Once you get get these things organized, you will sleep, maybe not like a baby, but better.
Yeah, you'll have smooth closings, right?
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you again for being on our call.
Yes.
And I look forward to having everybody on our next call in a couple weeks. So thank you, Beth.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Elevate Your Business, a podcast from Elevate, the internal coaching program at Guild Mortgage. Glad you could be here for today's playbook. If you want to check us out, head over to guildmortgage.com and click About Us to find Elevate Coaching. Have a question or want to keep the play going? Visit us and send a DM on Instagram at Elevate Mortgage Coaching, or leave a comment for us on YouTube. We're posting extra content, behind-the-scenes action, and everything you need to stay in the mortgage game. On Elevate Your Business, we share real stories and strategies from top producers to help you move forward. So ask yourself, what are you waiting for? It's time to elevate.
Guild Mortgage Company, Equal Housing Opportunity, Arizona Broker License Number 0018883, licensed by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation under the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act. Massachusetts Mortgage Lender License Number MC3274. Massachusetts Mortgage Broker License Number MC3274, licensed by the Mississippi Department of Banking and Consumer Finance, licensed by the New Jersey Department of Banking and Insurance. Nevada Mortgage Company Number 1141, Oregon Mortgage Lender License Number 176, Rhode Island Licensed Lender, Rhode Island Licensed Third-Party Loan Servicer, Company NMLSID 3274. For licensing information, go to www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. All loans subject to underwriter approval. Terms and conditions apply, subject to change without notice. Guild Mortgage Company is an equal opportunity employer. Guild Mortgage Company 5887 Copley Drive, floors 13456, San Diego, California 92111. For more licensing information, please visit www.guildmortgage.com/licensing. Elevate is an internal Guild Mortgage Company coaching program and not a separate entity. Podcast content is provided for informational purposes and based on publicly available materials or tactics used in the industry. The views, strategies, or opinions discussed do not necessarily represent those of Guild Mortgage Company or its affiliates. Intended for mortgage industry professionals only. Paula Nirschl, NMLS number 383396.
Beth Imhoff, NMLS number 1378711.
Thank you for joining us on Elevate Your Business, a podcast for mortgage professionals brought to you by Elevate, the internal coaching program at Guild Mortgage.